this moment. Let's meet. No matter where you are, how busy you are, this moment, let's set aside everything else so we can sit together, to meet, to talk over the issues. They are not your particular issues, but the issues of human beings. For most of us, such an occasion to understand, to learn, to inquire is rare. This whole life is buried totally in these superficialities. The mind keeps escaping from one thing to another, always scratching the surface, but rarely going deep. What is behind this escape, this constant escape? It's the deep fear running through the mind. Ultimately, life has been good enough. But there is always a kind of deep anxiety, despair, hopelessness running through the life. The mind is always escaping, avoiding this issue. But this issue is abiding. It's always there. As one grows older, the mind is more and more conforming to this mental construct of society. The life is more and more shaped by the pattern of this society. The mind becomes duller and duller, losing its vitality. But this sense of deep anxiety, fear, despair is always there. The mind is always depressed in one way or another, though the mind craves all kinds of pleasure. Ultimately, one can look very excited, but inwardly, one can be deeply depressed. Life is full of all kinds of hypocrisy, contradictions. And the mind is conforming to the etiquette of the society to show this common decency. But what is behind this superficial decency? It's all kinds of unbelievable, shocking, and ugly behaviors. The mind is controlling to behave normally. But what is behind it is extremely abnormal. All kinds of distortions, deformed living is behind this very superficial, very fragile decency. And this mental escape is the natural response to the deep issues that are never examined. Going deep means the mind remains with the issue, studies it carefully, thoroughly, to clear all the confusion, illusion around it. And this requires tremendous energy. The energy must be gathered from all kinds of thoughts, activities, the egocentric thinking, the ambition, the desire, all the rest of it. The energy that is being visited by all kinds of escape. With the energy gathered, the mind is able to give full attention to the issues. Without judging or condemning, just give full attention to learn to look at the issues as they are. The very doing so brings a different quality of mind with vitality. With great pliability, flexibility. A mind with vast space. But this is not a theory or an idea created by the speaker. It is a fact. one must see it clearly. One must find out for oneself to see the truth of it. Or else, what is being said here is always an idea, because the mind is trapped in a verse, but the verse are not a thing. One must find out the thing, not the verse. And to find out demands energy. But for most people, the energy is being wasted and dissipated by the pleasure seeking, by its own ambition, derived from the illusion, all kinds of desires. The mind is trapped there, with all the energy absorbed. By those things. So the mind is simply crippled and disabled to act, to find out. So, to meditate is to get the energy, to find out the truth for oneself. The truth is the thing, but the verse are not the thing, are not the thing. Listening to some verse is fairly easy. This world, as we see now, of the world, is verbal. From the practical world to the commercial world, everything is so verbal. The mind is being lazy, getting its own satisfaction from the verse. Unwilling to go further, to find out for oneself what is true. So to meditate is to stop this mental laziness. And any mental dependence. A clear mind never takes any drugs. Never letting the drug or medicine alter the consciousness. Because a clear mind says that it is dangerous. It is very dangerous. A life with mental dependence is danger. It's the danger. So to meditate is to end any mental dependence. The mind is looking, observing, learning, and finding out what is true for oneself. In other words, to meditate is to be a light to yourself. So now the speaker is inviting you to keep silent for 3 or 4 minutes to continue the full attention. To continue the full attention by observing the breath, or listening to the sound around you, or feel the sensation of the body. Without any seeking, just look, observe, and then, after that, let's continue the session together. The mind keeps accumulating all kinds of things. As the mind becomes older, the mind is trapped in all kinds of burdens. The burden comes from the reaction to the thoughts, which are being accumulated all the time. The mind is seeking, is achieving, is wanting. And this is most people's mental activities in one's daily living. The media propaganda is full of all kinds of success stories. To be successful, to be famous, to be more respectful. This mind is being influenced by all kinds of influences from the media, from the books, from the casual talks of the neighbors. From your own viewpoints, conclusions created by yourself. Based on your own experience, mixed with all kinds of subtle influences from other places. Such a living is totally confusing. A mind that keeps accumulating must encounter all kinds of contradictions, conflicts. Therefore, it must be confused. A mind that is being influenced by all kinds of influences to be successful, to be famous, to be respectable, is constantly cultivating this urge from the mind. So the mind is always seeking. A mind that is seeking is trapped in fear, wanting to be successful. So there's a fear of not being successful. Wanting to be respected. There's a fear of not being respected. wanting to achieve this, the mind has a fear of not achieving, not reaching, not becoming. So, a mind that is seeking inevitably encounters fear. And being influenced by this massive media, by the culture, by the propaganda, the mind is conditioned to this way of thinking, seeking fame, seeking position, seeking power, seeking success in any form. Feeling that this is normal to live in this way. But the very seeking itself creates numerous fear. Though many people have achieved the so-called success, having more money, better house, better cars, the mind is still anxious. Still in fear. The mind doesn't really feel safe, secure. This fear, in a deeper sense, it's still there. And the mind is escaping into the pleasure-seeking activities to find its own gratification, satisfaction, its own fulfillment. To keep the fear, the anxiety out for a moment. When the mind is seeking pleasure, the mind is in concentration. So the thoughts that bring about pleasure block out the issues for a moment. But issues are still there. So the mind keeps seeking pleasure, keeps escaping. At the same time, the mind keeps creating new issues. Because seeking pleasure is still seeking. And seeking must bring about fear. This immediate satisfaction, immediate gratification, and fulfillment is deceiving the mind. And such a mind is never patient, because these immediate things, pleasure, is the most important. I don't care about anything else. I just want immediate satisfaction, fulfillment. this life is in panic. More and more issues are being created, and the mind is merely into the pleasure for all kinds of superficial things. And as fear mounts, pleasure seeking becomes more and more toxic, difficult, and the life is in great crisis. To end fear is to stop creating new fear. That must be the first step. Else, fear is being created all the time. To stop creating fear is to stop seek. When the mind sees the danger of seeking success in any forms and all the rest of it, and also seeking pleasure, when the mind sees the danger of it, actually, just like the mind sees a hungry bear, the mind must take actions immediately. That's to stop seeking totally. When the mind doesn't seek, there's no fear at all. But to end seeking demands one's tremendous and diligent observation, because this seeking has become extremely subtle in its utterly individualistic and egocentric world. The ego is created based on numerous, very subtle seeking activities. The ego is the seeking to the bone. The egocentric way of thinking and living is full of all kinds of very subtle and numerous seeking. Can one end them totally? Which means that can one do it now? To observe oneself. Observe all the seeking activities. No matter seeking success or seeking something else, it is still the seeking. Can one observe that totally now? No matter how subtle it is, the seeking is seeking. When we say, okay, I say that I'm seeking success, so now I stop seeking success. But stopping seeking success is different from stop seeking. Stop seeking success might bring slight modification, but the issues are still there because the mind is still seeking. So when the mind realizes these great issues of seeking, one must put all the energy into the observation to observe carefully of all the seeking activities on the mind. Not the details, not the seeking one by one, but all the seeking activities behind all kinds of things. If the mind is merely dealing with seeking success, then it's not serious at all. Because success is only a small part of the content of the thoughts. But the mind must be dealing with the seeking itself. Stop any seeking. When the mind becomes hesitant, it doesn't mean it doesn't mean that the mind can't do it, but the mind has new fear because all one's existing living is based on all kinds of pleasure, which is also out of the seeking activities. And the mind doesn't want to let go of the pleasure. So that's why the mind can't really end the seeking totally, because of this vested interest, pleasure. So that's why this self-inquiry is so challenging. Not because it is difficult, but the mind doesn't want to let go of the pleasure. Because the pleasure is also out of these seeking activities, the mental seeking. And such a mind has never tasted what is a life like without pleasure seeking. So the mind only knows its own pleasure and holds on to the known, the very limited known, the knowledge it has about itself. And the mind won't let go of the knowledge to really find out what it's like when the mind does not seek pleasure whatsoever. So the mind generates a new image about this scenario, which brings about the fear of losing the pleasure. Still, the mind is seeking security. So the seeking is still there. The pattern is still there. So that's why if one is merely dealing with the seeking partially, one is not dealing at all. Partially means that mind is making a choice. It's calculating. It's evaluating. And it is still seeking. Only a seeking mind is doing things partially. But either the issue can be totally solved, or the issue is there. Being partial, it's just part of this self-deception, which doesn't lead to any result. So, can one live a life without any seeking whatsoever? Which also means that can one live a life that ends this self-centered thinking, this self-centered way of living, which is full of all kinds of seeking? To answer this question is not to use a verse, but to find out for yourself. To live. To live in truth. To live a life without any seeking. To see what will happen to the mind, to the life. And taking such sheer action is the beginning of the true meditation. Great. Now let's continue the full attention by following or not following the audio guide to reflect upon what we have discovered today, to look at ourselves as what we are actually. Let's do it now. Now, let's take a 10-minute meditation. Start by taking a moment to find a comfortable position to sit in a posture that you feel relaxed and get alert. Let hands rest on your knees or laps. Let the eyes close gently. Soften your forehead. Act a soft smile in the corner of your lips. Breathe naturally. As you breathe in, be aware that you are breathing in. Feel the sensation of breathing in. The region can be the nostrils, can be the belly, can be anywhere. Focus on the part you feel most. As you breathe out, be aware that you are breathing out. Feel the sensation of breathing out. The region can be the nostrils, can be the belly, can be anywhere. Focus on the part you feel most. Fix your attention on the breath. Let go of any thought, words, images. This moment, nothing is more important than breath. While you are listening to the bell, check where your attention is. If it wasn't on the breath, after the bell, gently invite your attention back to the breath and sustain your attention on the breath. slowly bring your awareness back to this room. Feel into your body. Wiggle your fingers and toes. When you are ready, open your eyes. Can one observe the total movement of thoughts? In that observation, the mind observes all the seeking. Which means that the mind is giving full attention to its own thoughts at each moment. Moment by moment, to be aware. And only in that state of mind, the seeking can be totally eradicated. Without seeking, the mind is free of any illusions, any traps. And the mind is free. But as long as the mind is seeking, the mind is trapped. There's no freedom at all. With all the fear, anxiety there. So it's up to you to take actions, to really observe yourself without being the observer. To the mind being able to see the total movement of thoughts. And the wisdom is out of there. And this is the whole content of today's session. Inquiring into ourselves. To see this connection between the deep fear, anxiety, and these constant seeking activities. To really understand this is to stop seeking. To really do the experiment on yourself. To see what will take place when the mind stops seeking. You can't imagine it. You can't simply depend on what the speaker says. You must find out for yourself to see the truth of it, the significance of it. And this is the meditation. And please share this session with more people to bring this clarity to more people. And also, everyone is welcome to donate to support this session and Mindverse Foundation. This pure, selfless initiative. to help it reach more people, bring clarity to more people. And hopefully, this serious self-inquiry, which embodies the true meditation, is everyone's life. A really authentic life, living moment by moment with care, with peace, and never lacks joy. Take care. See you in the future sessions. Bye.